The first tool we're going to learn to use as communicators in negotiation is the tool of listening. Why listening? Why not projecting and transmitting and saying what we want? Well, quite simply, I have the feeling that many of us have at some point been exposed in life to either lessons or sermons or discussions about how to say what you want. Okay? We have debating clubs, and we have politics to watch, and we have the news, and we have interviews, and we have all sorts of scenes in which we view people orating. But there's no Best Listener of the Year award. And this tool is such a powerful tool to use in negotiation that I want to spotlight it and start off with it as the most basic fundamental thing that you can do in order to manage this communication loop. Why is it so crucial? Why is such an important skill? Well, quite simply, the first thing that you can look at in order to understand why this tool of listening is so important is just to picture in your mind and consider how people feel when they are being listened to and how people feel when they are not being listened to. And this question of how people feel is a critical question in negotiation because it cuts right down to the question of, will they therefore cooperate with you? Will they build a relationship with you? Will they work with you? So even if you're considering a negotiation in a non-touchy-feely arena, okay? You're considering a business negotiation. The question of how your counterpart feels and how your counterpart connects with you is crucial. We can't pretend that it's not and hope that that issue will go away. So a lot of what we will be studying in communication skills in general is how to connect to the other party, and what better place to start than listening. And in order to get a full picture of this, we need to understand how people feel and how people react when they feel that they are not being listened to. So to get a picture for that, let's take a look at Teresa, who's trying to tell me a story that is of some importance to her, but she's not finding a good listener on the other side. And let's see what that does.
I got so aggravated earlier this week. I'm trying to line up textbooks for all the courses in our summer program. And we have courses that begin each week over the summer term. And it was a Monday, the first class of the term of a particular course in our program. And just because I had an uneasy feeling in my gut, I walked over to the university bookstore to see if the books that are required for this class
is that the place where they sell all the Blue Jay stuff?
Yeah.
The place under the... Yeah, I know that stuff.
Yeah. So I go
they
downstairs.
They ripped me off once. Just a couple of weeks ago. They ripped me off.
No, it's just this... Well, this happened to me just last week.
Okay.
So I go walking over there. I go all the way downstairs to look for the bookstore manager. And I walk to the shelves where books for our master's degree program would normally be shelved, and they're not there. And class starts that night. So I walk all over the store looking for the bookstore manager, can't find her, walk all the way back to the law school building, go to my office, send her an email, and say, I was just in the bookstore minutes ago, can't find the books for the class that starts tonight. Here's the order confirmation that you sent me just a couple of weeks ago.
You should have sent them an email. You should have gone in there and you just slam your hand down the table and you say, hey, can I get some service here?
That would not be my style. But
yeah, but they can ignore your email, and also they
could. But I don't think you might have missed the part where I said I walked over there and went downstairs to find the textbook manager, and I couldn't find her.
That's what I'm saying. They're never around, right?
Yeah.
Well, I had that.
They're just not around.
It's that, and I had the same thing. I was at Sears. Up on Dodge. I was at Sears a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah.
I had exactly the same thing happen. Well, it wasn't exactly the same thing because the manager did show up, but he had no idea what was going on. And anyway, it was just like this inefficient service, and you get it all over the place nowadays. It's nobody to talk to nowadays. Country's going to the dogs.
Yeah. They never ordered the books, by the way.
What books?
Never mind.
It didn't take too much to shut Teresa down, did it? And to be honest, I didn't get that much out of that interaction either. Turnabout is fair play, so I asked Teresa to allow me to tell a story to her about an incident that occurred to me that was of some importance to me, and to see how I would respond to however she'd act. So let's look now at Teresa's listening and how it affected me.
So I want to tell you about my flight here to Creighton. My flight to Omaha. It was a nightmare flight. Well, I mean, yeah. It was. I had the middle seat when I was flying to Chicago. I had the middle seat, and there were. I mean, they're perfectly normal people, like everything, but they were the worst travelers ever. So, like, without noticing, the girl had her headphones on, and you could hear the music was louder outside of her headphones, was louder than it was on the inside. And the guy sitting next to me, he wasn't even noticing. He was moving his stuff away, and he just kind of put his laptop down in my lap without even noticing if I was at table.
You know what's really funny? I was on a flight one time. Wait, I have to tell you this. I was on a flight one time, and you talk about sitting in the middle seat. You know who I was sitting next to? Who was sitting in the middle seat?
Who?
This is a big new Brzezinski. From the Carter administration?
Yeah, well...
You're probably not old enough to remember him, but I sat right next to him on a flight.
But my mom was old enough to remember him. But anyway, the point is... The point is that, at some point I was thinking, do I talk to them? Do I not talk to them? And I wanted to tell the girl, could you turn that down? But then I thought to myself, well, is that being sexist? Why don't you tell the guy, keep your stuff in order? Why are you picking on the girls?
Don't you just have your own headphones so you can just cancel all these people out? I mean, what really?
Yeah, but that's not. Why should I have to retreat into my own space? That wasn't where I was anyway. And no, I didn't.
2014, and that's what people do. I mean, no offense, but that's kind of what people do on planes. So, do your own thing. Right?
Well, I don't know if people are. I'm not saying they were mean people. I'm just saying people are inconsiderate and that they don't always know what's what. They're not looking around. Not looking around you, caring about your effect on the person next to you.
Maybe you were just tired and you just didn't feel like talking. I mean, you could have struck up a conversation. I love to talk to people on airplanes. I get some of the most interesting life stories from people on the plane, and they probably just wanted to do that, with you. So maybe you were too tired to do it this time, and maybe on the way back you'll feel more like getting in the swing of things on the plane, so you can make it a pleasant trip, right?
Yeah. Okay.
I guess the best way to summarize that might be ouch. And why is that ouch important? That ouch is important because, as I said before, the question of how a negotiator feels, quite simply in a negotiation, how they feel, how comfortable they are feeling with the situation, with their counterpart, with the surroundings, and with the communication going on, the question of how they feel is going to affect how they react, how they respond, how they participate. And let's think a little bit about how being heard or not heard, as a result of being listened to or not listened to, how that makes us feel. When we feel as if someone has not been listening to us, we might feel, as we saw in the demonstrations, and I'm sure you've experienced in your own life, we feel angry. We feel hurt. We feel disrespected. Sometimes we feel humiliated or rejected. When we feel heard, on the other hand, when we feel that someone has been listening to us, we feel respected, we feel valued, we feel as if we've been heard, we hear as if there's some sort of empathy has been built and we feel connected to the party who has listened to us. So bringing that into negotiation, by listening to someone, we can give them what might be a somewhat comforting sense of, yes, we are present in this conversation together. I may not agree with what you're saying, but I am valuing the fact that you have something to say. So that bond creates empathy. And through that building of empathy, it creates a better relationship and it creates trust. And those three elements, empathy, relationship, and trust, are invaluable to negotiators. They're not just touchy-feely issues. These are huge strategic goals for negotiators to strive to attain in a negotiation. Very simply because empathy and trust and relationship will translate, should you want it to translate, into cooperation on the substance of the deal, into process cooperation as how we communicate and how we work things out. Are we going to be out to get each other, or are we going to work together and try and figure out together? They create, again, trust, relationship, and empathy. They encourage reciprocation. So if I'm listening to you and you feel listened to, you might very well listen to me. And that might also spill over into the negotiation process in a larger sense. If I do something for you, you will do something for me. If I'm willing to work with you, you will be willing to work with me. And on the basic, most fundamental level, if we have managed to build empathy, relationship, and trust, there's a fairly good chance that we will be able to get the information we need from the other party. If the other party has no sense of empathy, relationship, and or trust, then there's no reason that the other person is going to tell us anything that we need to know. Okay? So this is why I'm focusing so much on this topic of how listening makes us feel, because listening has the power to make negotiators feel very good about what is going on and feel as if a bond is connecting between the negotiators. Taking this back to the communication loop, good listening, therefore, cleans the channel that goes between the transmitter and the receiver. Remember the channel and remember the noise going on. Good listening helps reduce some of the noise that gets built up in the channel. If these are the potential payoffs of good listening, then you might be saying to yourself, okay, so I want to learn how to do that well. And I especially want to learn how to do that well in a negotiation context where listening might not be the same as it is, in a friendly conversation with someone who you like and you like what they're saying. It's not as simple with someone with whom you might have a more complex relationship or no relationship at all, other than the fact that you're asking each other for stuff now. And that perhaps you don't have any previous relationship to build on, and so on and so forth. So, how do we build in that context? How do we become really good listeners? So the first thing to do is to understand that listening is a complex process, and you need to keep a picture of the communication loop in mind in order to remember how to do it well. Remember that the communication loop includes both the main channel and also the feedback channel. Being a good listener, a really excellent listener, includes managing both of those channels at once. And the way to do that, since that requires both receiving, listening is receiving, but also transmitting a message of, I'm listening to you. So this transmitting and receiving at the same time requires really excellent listening skills of the type that we call active listening. It's not enough just to sit and hear what the person is saying. We need to, at the same time, be transmitting back to the other that we're with you, and we hear you, and we want to hear more, and we really want to understand you. So managing both of those at time require that we become not only excellent listeners, but excellent active listeners. And in order to do so, we're going to learn two tools that are both sides or aspects of that loop. And the first is listening, and the second is reflecting. So the first tool we're going to use is how we actively listen to someone else, and then the second one is how we make sure that the loop is completed by making sure that we've understood the other and that they get the feeling that we've understood them. Focusing on the listening part of that, okay? So we want to listen, and that means maintaining a lot of focus and not planning a grocery list in our mind at the same time, and not forming counter-arguments in our mind at the same time. So we need some clearing of our mind and really intaking what's going on. However, at the same time we're intaking, we want to somehow send a message back to the other party. I hear you. I'm understanding you. Doing different things that might help to form that trust, empathy, and relationship build up. How do we do that? So, of course this is all contextual. Let's say when I'm listening to my wife and sometimes I want her to know that I'm really with her and I'm really understanding where she is as she tells me this thing, sometimes I might reach over and put my hand on top of hers. Now, you might consider this as a way to complete the communication loop that might be suitable between me and my wife, but might not be suitable between me and a manager if I'm negotiating the price of a unit between our two companies. So the most important thing about active listening is that it needs to be contextually suitable. So everything that we say now, say, well, how would this work in a personal context, in a friendly context, at a workplace context, when working with a stranger, and so on and so forth. But these are all elements that can be at play. So context is important. You need to take into account your body language. Your body language should send a message of, you know, I'm listening to you. I'm with you. So if I would be talking to you and saying, yeah, I'm listening. Obviously, that's not sending a very powerful listening message. But if I orient myself towards you, and perhaps don't sit down in my own world, but rather I'm looking and eager to hear what you say. So I'm managing to transmit, to close the communication loop by transmitting. Yeah, give me more. I'm listening. I want to understand you. We're trying, just planting the words in our mind is enough usually to tell our body what to do. We're trying to transmit attentiveness. We're trying to transmit focus, that the person we're listening to you are now the focal point of what is going on. We're completely with you. This means we might use eye contact suitably in order to achieve this message. We don't want to stare someone necessarily in the eyes, but we do want to be with them and make suitable eye contact. It also means that we keep in mind what we don't do. We don't play with our cell phone or jangle our keys as the other person, all sorts of other signs of not being attentive or just being impatient to leave. So you'll start watching your own listening habits and understanding what needs to be worked on, and it's quite easy once you know what to look for to start improving. You can also go to a restaurant and see two people who are having a conversation, and once you start asking yourself, are they listening to one another? And zooming in on one, is she listening to him? And then asking yourself, well, is she listening well or not? And what are the things that she is doing or not doing that signify and send a message of, I am listening or I'm not? This will become fairly easy for you to start noticing. Another important part of that communication loop is what we transmit a bit more overtly. So it's not just making eye contact or sitting towards someone, but it's also in the micro-expressions we make. So micro-expressions of nodding when the other is talking, not a nod of, that's right, exactly, I agree with you, but a nod of, yeah, I'm listening, go on. Which is, of course, a cultural issue of exactly how deep a nod should it be, or whether that's the suitable move, or this might be a suitable move in other countries, or in every place that has its own language of how to do these things. But whatever it is, whatever signal you say to tell the other, yes, I'm with you, more please, then do that. Also, little affirming and interested noises that we make when someone's talking to us and we say, or small interjections that we make. Oh, really? Okay. And whatever it is that we say as they are talking, not in order to cut them off, not in order to interject our own opinion or our own anything, but just in order to tell them, oh, right? I get that point was important to you, or that seemed to be a major important thing that you wanted to say. Or when someone says something that is a happy episode for them, we smile as they tell it to us, in a suitable moment. And when they're telling about how their puppy died, then it might be suitable to put on a sad face. Now, the most important thing in all of this, and this is, since this might all sound kind of automated and robot-like and faking, is that I'm not talking about faking it at all. The key to good, excellent listening is sincerity. And it's really not that hard to listen to someone whom you're with and really want to get in there and understand what's going on and be willing to intake what the other person has to say. The reason that we don't do it as much as we think or as much as we should is because we're concerned that if we let the other person talk for too long, then it's as if we're admitting they're right. We're giving them the stage, and therefore we will have to give away whatever they're asking us for in negotiation. If we can manage to separate in our own mind between those two, between how we're communicating and what we will actually give, then we won't mind listening to them at all. Because in the end we'll realize that only through listening to what they have to say will we understand in the end what we'll need to do in order to make them give us what we came here for. So they hold the key. And we need to listen in order to allow them to share with us what the key might be. Listening should not be a self-threatening activity. So get used to it. You can listen and listen and listen. You can empathize and empathize and empathize and still not give away anything you don't want to give away. So if you can create that divide in your own mind, that will set you free to be a sincere and genuine listener, and you will see that taking effect. Of course, once again, it's especially hard to do this when you're in a situation not interacting with a friend, but when you're interacting with someone who you might not like, or you might be angry at, or at least you're not liking what they have to say to you, which is often the case in negotiation. Let's see how that plays out when I tell my upstairs neighbor, Bernie, some things that he doesn't like. Some things that I know he doesn't like and he knows he doesn't like, but let's see how he listens when he's in that situation. Hi, Bernie. Thanks.
You back?
I'm back. Yeah, and thanks for letting me in after last night when you slammed the door in my face. Listen, I got to talk to you about some stuff.
Okay, well, I'm all ears.
Listen, I mean, I've said this to you before, but I gotta say it straight out. Your dog is driving me crazy. Your dog is barking and all night, all day. I can't sleep at night.
He's keeping you awake at night?
He's keeping me awake at night, and just as I start falling asleep, something else starts it off, and it's really driving me crazy. And I work hard all day, and I need my sleep, and I'm not getting it. And it's because of your dogs. I need you to do something about it. So that's a really, really good example of what good listening looks like, even when you're in a situation in which you're not happy to be listening to it, or you're not happy to be in the situation in the first place. But still, you're sitting down with a counterpart and they have something to say, and you're listening to them. And we've seen those different kind of micro tools and micro expressions that we discussed about play out in the way Bernie was listening to me. Now, if the listening phase we focus on more micro tools, micro skills of listening and all the different ways in which we transmit silent messages of I'm with you and I'm listening. In the next stage, reflecting, we use more overt transmission tools in order to tell the other person, we have heard what you were trying to say, it was important to us to hear it, we are interested in hearing what you say, and we want to make sure that we've got it all right.